Today we have discussed in detail about bones of upper limb. So there are total 64 bones if we include that shoulder bones also, shoulder pectoral girdle also, like two clavicle and two scapula, and there are 64 bones. So first of all we will talk about clavicle. This is the first bone to ossify intrauterine life, and if we talk about clavicle, this is the other name for clavicle is beauty bone, or it is also called collarbone. It is a Greek word, means small key. Then there is a syndrome we have talked about, cleidocranial dysostosis or cleidocranial dysplasia, in which there is absence or incomplete growth of clavicle, and due to absence of the clavicle, the shoulder will droop down and come in front of the chest. That is called cleidocranial dysostosis due to absence and incomplete growth of the clavicle. Then we have talked about some function. The function of the clavicle is that it transmits the weight of upper limb to the sternum with the help of a ligament called coracoclavicular ligament. So with the help of coracoclavicular ligament, if you can see, this is the scapula. This is the coracoid process. A ligament called coracoclavicular ligament that helps in transmission of weight of the upper limb towards the sternum and thorax. Then we have talked about, there are two heads. One is the sternum. Suppose this is the sternum. This is the sternal head, or you can say medial head, and this one is the lateral end. Sorry, this is the medial end or sternal end, and this is the lateral end or acromial end. Why acromial? Because it makes a joint with the acromial process, acromioclavicular gland. And why it is sternal? Because it attaches with the sternum. So medial end or sternal end, lateral end or acromial end. Medial end is large and quadrilateral, and lateral end is flat. The medial end is convex anteriorly, and lateral end is concave anteriorly. Am I right?
Yes.
And in the lateral end we have a foramen called nutrient foramina for the nutrient artery to go inside and give the blood supply to the bone. Am I right?
Yes.
And there is a weakest point present at 2/3 of medial and 1 lateral of bone. It is a weakness, joint junction between the 2/3 of medial and 1/3 of lateral. That is the weakest point of the clavicle. Most of the clavicular fracture happens here due to its weakness. Then we have talked about these, and we have talked about some. Then we have talked about some exceptional features of the bone. First of all, I have talked about that this is the first bone to ossify. Then second bone is mandible. First bone to ossify, that is clavicle, and there are some features which distinguish clavicle, that is a long bone, to the rest of the long bone. Number one feature we have talked about intramembranous ossification. Clavicle is the only long bone which ossify with a concept called intramembrane ossification, and rest of all long bones ossify with endochondral ossification. Then second one is horizontal line. Horizontal, this is the only long bone present horizontally, and rest of all long bone present at the vertical positions or longitudinal axis, you can say, long axis. Then this is the only bone which don't have medullary cavity. All the long bones have medullary cavities inside, but this is the, you can see over here because I am explaining here. So all the long bones having medullary cavities, and this is the only long one which don't have medullary cavity. Fourth one exception, that is present subcutaneously, and fifth one is this is the only long one which are having two primary centers of ossification. One is at the medial side, one at the lateral side, of course at the diaphysis of the bone. Then one nerve called supraclavicular nerve pierces the nerve. Pierces this clavicle bone. Then we have talked about chest. This is the most common fracture bone of the body, that is clavicle, and fracture happens at the weakest point. And where is the weak point? Junction between the 2/3 of the clavicle. If I can show you over here, we have talked about. We will divide this clavicle in three parts: first, second, third. This is the medial 2/3 of the clavicle, and this is the lateral 1/3. So this is the junction of medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. This is the weakest point. Here the fracture should happen. Then this is the bone is birth fracture in the baby while delivery. Which presentation? Especially in breech presentation, when the head is above and the limbs are towards the vaginal opening, you can say. So this is the most bone that is fractured during birth, most commonly. Then growing end, this sternal end, this is the growing end of the clavicle, and the secondary ossification fuses, like epiphysis fuses with the diaphysis at the age of 25 years of age. So that, and the fracture of the clavicle bone happen due to two reasons. One is outstretched hand, that is called indirect violence, or second one is fracture at the shoulder joint, that will lead to the fracture of the clavicle. So that was about clavicle. Then we have talked about some scapula. So for scapula, okay, you can see over here, I will explain like that. This is the scapula, okay, I can do like this. This is also called shoulder blade. Shoulder blade. This is triangular in shape. This is a type of flat bone. It have three borders, three angles, two surfaces. We will talk about that. First of all, we will talk about borders. It have one superior border, one is lateral border, another is medial border. The superior border, most importantly, you should not forget, that is suprasternal notch. In superior border, we have a notch called suprasternal notch that converts into a foramen with the help of a transverse ligament. And there is a mnemonic we discussed, that is army above navy. Army means artery. Suprascapular artery passes above that foramen, and suprascapular nerve passes below that foramen. So army above navy. So that was the superior border. Then we have talked about medial border. Simply medial border. There is not that much difficult. That is thick border. Then thin border. Then lateral border. This is the most thickest border of the scapula. This is the lateral border. Then we have talked about some angles. One is superior angle, one is inferior angle, one is lateral angle. Superior angle present at the level of spine of T2 thoracic vertebra. You can see over here. This is the superior angle. This is the level of T2 spinous process of the thoracic vertebra. See, this is the T2. Why? Because second rib attaches over here. Second rib. Then inferior angle present at the level of T7 spinous process of the thoracic vertebra number 7. And then we have lateral angle, that is the thickest angle, or it is called the head of the scapula. This is also called glenoid angle. The glenoid is a Greek word, means is socket. Then okay, we have talked about some surfaces also. See, this is the anterior surface or ventral surface. And other name for this anterior surface should be, because ribs are present anterior to this surface, this surface is called costal surface. This is concave forward and gives a lever, act as a lever function for the serratus anterior muscle for the overhead abduction of the arm. Then there is another surface called posterior surface or dorsal surface. There is a process called spinous process which divides this dorsal surface of the scapula into superior spinous fossa and infraspinatus. Supraspinatus fossa and infraspinatus, like spinous, this is spine. The fossa present above it is supraspinatus fossa. Fossa below the spine, infraspinatus fossa. See, it comes from the medial side of the dorsal side, medial dorsal of the scapula, and goes laterally and makes a process called acromial process. Then we have talked about, okay, then we have talked about some angles. Then is a deformity called Springel's deformity. This is the deformity in which there is a high level of scapula one-sidedly. Springel's deformity, what happens? There are two etiologies. Number one, if there is a fusion of two or more than two bones in the neck, that is called Klippel-Feil syndrome. Another deformity is if there is scoliosis of vertebral, cervical vertebra or thoracic vertebra. There is any curve laterally, scoliosis of the cervical or thoracic vertebra, then there is a formation of omovertebral bone from spine to these vertebrae due to scoliosis of the cervical or vertebral vertebra. This is called Springel's deformity. Are you with me?
Yes.
So then at the end we have talked about, okay, winging of scapula. We have talked about serratus anterior muscle, lever function, anterior or costal surface. If there is any problem with serratus anterior muscle, the clinical feature is winging of scapula. If the nerve that innervates the serratus anterior muscle, that is long thoracic nerve. If that nerve is damaged, then also lead to the winging of scapula. I have told you. So that white table is finished. Then second one. We have talked about some processes of the scapula. Number one process is this one, coracoid. What is coracoid? It is a Greek word means for crow's beak. Then we have spinous process over here, and then we have and coracoid. This is acromial process. Coracoid process, acromial process, and spine process. First of all, number one, coracoid process. This one, it provides the insertion for the 3 muscles and 3 ligaments. If we talk about 3 ligaments, number one ligament should look at here. 3 ligaments should be coracoclavicular ligament, coracoacromial ligament, coracohumeral ligament. 3 ligaments. So coracoid process provides insertion for the 3 ligaments: coracoclavicular, coracoacromial, coracohumeral ligament. They also provide insertion for the 3 muscles. Number one muscle is, you can say, short head of biceps brachii muscle. Then another muscle is pectoralis minor muscles and coracobrachialis muscles. Coracobrachialis, short head of bicep muscle, and pectoralis minor muscle. These 3 muscles are get inserted for the coracoid process. Then we have talked about acromial process. This is the acromial process. You can see this is the spine from the medial side going lateral side. This is the spinal lateral side of spine makes acromial process. Okay, you can see over here. This is the spine, right, coming from the medial side going laterally. It will make a acromion process. That will make a joint with clavicle guard, acromioclavicular joint. And the muscle attached with this acromial process, that is trapezius muscle. Shrugging of shoulder, function of the trapezius muscle. Accessory nerve innervates that muscle, by the way. Then there is another process called the spine. This is a shelf-like projection from the dorsal aspect of scapula. Like from the posterior aspect of scapula, there is shelf-like projections coming to being that divide the dorsal aspect of scapula into 2, supraspinatus and infraspinatus. That is spine of the scapula. So that is the third process. Then we have talked about some attachment over here. You can see there is attachment called supraglenoid tubercle and infraglenoid tubercle. The attachment of the muscles. In supraglenoid tubercle attaches with the tendon of the bicep muscle, and infraglenoid tubercle attaches with the tricep muscle. Mnemonic called she likes baking and I like taking. Like S for supraglenoid tubercle, S for she, baking, B for baking, and B for biceps, tendon of the bicep muscle. Infraglenoid, I for infraglenoid tubercle, I for I. And I like taking, T for taking, and T for tricep muscle. So don't forget this. If you know the mnemonic, you can understand that. Then yes, that was about scapula. Is there any question left behind for around the scapula? No. Then we will talk about humerus. Okay, the scapula, the secondary ossification fuses at the age of 20 years of age. For clavicle, 25 years of age. For scapula, 20 years of age. For humerus, 18 years of age. For radius, again 20 years of age. So come for this humerus. What is humerus? This is the longest and strongest bone of the upper limb. And ossification starts from the 8th week of intrauterine life, and fusion of epiphysis with the diaphysis will happen at 18 years of age. Then then we'll talk about some neck. Humerus have 2 necks: anatomical neck and surgical neck. Anatomical neck, as we should know that we study anatomy first, then we will go for surgery. So we will have anatomical neck first, then we will have surgical neck. For anatomical neck, definition of anatomical neck is some kind of constriction which separates head of the humerus with upper part of the humerus. Anatomical neck. And then we have surgical neck, which divides the upper end of the, or you can say head and neck, head and anatomical neck, or upper end of the humerus with the shaft and lower end of the humerus. That is surgical neck. Surgical neck is the most vulnerable site of fracture in the humerus joint, humerus bone. And if there is a fracture at the surgical neck, or there is dislocation of the shoulder joint, that will lead to damage to the which nerve? Axillary nerve. There is a mnemonic called R move. If there is shaft, if there is head of humerus is fracture, axillary nerve. If the shaft of the humerus is fractured, radial nerve will go. If there is a supracondylar part, will damage median nerve. If there is a lower level of supracondylar part, there should be ulnar nerve. Okay, for supracondylar part, we have talked about Volkmann ischemic contracture when there is a brachial artery occlusion. like this feature. This is a clinical feature in the supracondylar fracture. If there is supracondylar fracture of the humerus happen, clinical pathology is Foxman ischemic contracture that due to the occlusion of the brachial artery. Okay, then we will talk about, okay, if there is a surgical fracture at the surgical neck of the humerus, not only auxiliary nerve will damage, but also anterior and posterior circumflex humeral artery will damage. Then we have talked about some tubercle of the humerus. One is greater tubercle, another is lesser tubercle. Now I will show you from a skeleton. There is a greater tubercle. What is tubercle, by the way? What is tubercle? Small, rounded elevation. This is greater tubercle, this is lesser tubercle. In the greater tubercle, we have three impressions: superior, middle, and inferior. With the superior impression and middle and inferior, we have attachment of the three muscles like supraspinatus muscle, infraspinatus muscle, and teres minor muscle. With the lesser tubercle, we have attachment for only one muscle, that is subscapularis muscle. These four muscles are called rotator cuff muscles that stabilizes the shoulder joint. As we know, the glenoid cavity is small, but head of the humerus is large. So in order to stabilize this joint, nature provide us a good strength due to these four muscles. So these four muscles are attached with the tubercle. Again, these three muscles, supraspinatus, okay, you can see now from here, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor muscle attaches with the superior impression, middle impression, inferior impression of the greater tubercle of humerus. Then we have talked about lesser tubercle. Subscapularis muscle attaches with the lesser tubercle of the humerus. These, one from the lesser tubercle, three from the greater tubercle, these four muscles. The mnemonic is SITS. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subclavicular. T is small because teres minor muscle, not teres major muscle. So it stabilizes the shoulder joint. Then we have talked about some shaft. There is anterior compartment of the shaft and posterior compartment. Anterior compartment of the shaft contains brachial vessels, brachial artery, brachial vein. Plus it have muscles, BBC muscles, brachialis muscles, coracobrachialis muscles, and bicep brachii muscles. And nerves, musculocutaneous nerve, median nerve, and ulnar nerve. Okay, you can see over here on the whiteboard because it is easier for them to understand. Anterior compartment has brachial artery and veins, bicep muscles, brachialis muscles, and coracobrachialis muscles. These muscles are called bicep brachii muscles, sorry, BBC muscles. These three muscles get innervation by musculocutaneous nerve, by the way. Plus musculocutaneous nerve, plus we have median nerve and ulnar nerve also passing through the anterior compartment of the shaft. If we talk about the posterior compartment of the shaft, we have tricep muscle and radial nerve. Then we have talked about some groove. What is groove, by the way? What is groove? It is elongated depression or a furrow. See, in between the greater tubercle and lesser tubercle of the humerus, we have a groove called bicipital groove. And in the posterior side, we have a spiral shaped groove that is called spiral groove or radial groove. For spiral radial groove, we have content that is radial artery, and there is another groove, another thing that is profunda brachii vessels also present. Profunda brachii vessels plus radial nerve, they are present in the spiral or radial groove, present at the posterior aspect of the humerus. If we talk about bicipital grooves, there are many things. We have to talk about bicipital groove. The content of the bicipital groove is tendon of the long head of the bicep, because the short head of the bicep attaches with the coracoid. Long head, tendon of the long head of bicep brachii muscle present in the bicipital groove. Plus there is ascending branch of anterior circumflex artery that also are content of the bicipital groove. And if we talk about bicipital groove, we have medial lip and lateral lip, and then we have floor. Medial lip of the bicipital groove attaches with which major muscle? Teres major muscle. And lateral lip of the bicipital groove attaches with which major muscle? Pectoralis major muscle. And floor of the bicipital groove attaches with which muscle? Latissimus dorsi muscle. So you can see a lady between two majors. Latissimus dorsi muscle present at the floor, present between the lateral lip and medial lip. Lateral lip attaches with the pectoralis major muscle, and medial lip attaches with the teres major muscle. Lady between the two majors. Only important to remember, nothing else. Then okay, we have talked about some epicondyles. We have medial epicondyles and lateral epicondyles. Medial epicondyle of the humerus having posterior part and anterior part. The posterior part associated with the ulnar nerve, and it is also called funny bone. And when we touches the our posterior part of the medial epicondyle of the humerus, then there will be a kind of, you can see, and we feel a kind of lightening or tingling or numbness at the medial side of the fingers and hypothenar muscles also. This is called funny bone. Ulnar nerve present at the posterior compartment of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. And if we talk about anterior compartment of the medial epicondyle of the humerus, we have origin for the 5 flexor muscles, like flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpal ulnaris, flexor digitorum longus, like that, 5 flexor muscles. And if we talk about the anterior compartment of the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, then we have origin for the 4 extensor muscles, like extensor carpi radialis, extensor carpi ulnaris, extensor digitorum longus, and brevis, like that. So now we will talk about some angle of humeral torsion. Angle of humeral torsion, we will draw a line through the head of the humerus, and we will draw a line between the medial and lateral epicondyle of the humerus. There will be angle, we will find that angle is called torsion angle of the humerus. Then we have talked about the arcuate angle. It happens more in females, like in about 13 to 14 degree, but in male about 6 to 7 degree. Average is 5 to 15 degree. This is the carrying angle at the elbow joint. This is the gift of nature for us, that in female who is pregnant, if she is walking or she is doing work or heavy work, so this baby who is present inside her body will be get protected, so there will be no any harm to the baby. And there are 2 things that will lead to the vanishing of this carrying angle, that is pronation. Okay, so this is the normal carrying angle. If I do pronation, then carrying angle will be no more, and if I do extension at the elbow joint, then carrying angle will be lost. Then at the end we have talked about some blood supply of the head of the humerus. Basically that is our anterior circumflex humeral artery. Anterior circumflex humeral artery gives an ascending branch, and plus it gives an interosseous branch called arcuate artery. It supplies the head of the humerus. So that was about blood supply to the head of the humerus. Anything I forgot to explain? Nothing? Nothing. Okay, come over here now. Bluetooth. Then last but not the least, we have radius nerve. This is the radius nerve. Okay, you can see like this. This is the radial nerve, that is lateral, so not radial nerve, radial bone. We are talking about the bones of the upper limb. That is just a tongue of, slip of tongue. Medial bone of forearm. Medial bone of forearm, and the head of the radius is covered by the hyaline cartilage, making a joint with the humerus with the capitulum of the humerus. Then we will talk about annular ligament. There is a ligament over here which attaches the head of the humerus with the ulna, and it makes a superior radioulnar joint. And there is a clinical feature called pulled elbow. When we give a jerk to the hand of the baby, then what will happen? There will be subluxation of the annular ligament, and it will lose the grip of the annular ligament over the head of the radius. That supra radioulnar joint will be subluxated or displaced in the baby's arm mostly. Then we have talked about ulnar ligament makes a superior radioulnar joint, and movement of the head of the radius happens inside the annular ligament in pronation and supination. When we do supination and pronation, the head of the radius will go inside the annular ligament only. So if there is a pulled elbow in the baby, what will happen? That annular ligament will lose its grip to the head of the radius, and there will be pathology regarding that. Then we have a tubercle called distal tubercle present at the lower end, dorsal lower end of the radius. It have medial groove and lateral groove. Dorsal lower end of the radius. For the medial groove, okay, you can see over here, distal tubercle. We have a lower distal surface tubercle, tubercle. We have lateral groove and medial groove. Lateral groove for the extensor pollicis longus, and medial groove for the extensor carpi radialis. Then we will talk about some articulation with the wrist joint. Radius joint will make a articulation with the wrist joint with the scaphoid bone and lateral side of the lunate bone. Then we have talked about muscle insertion. There are 4 types of muscle. First of all, pronator muscles. Which 2 muscles? Pronator teres and pronator quadratus. Supinator muscles are also touched with the radius, that are supinator muscles and bicep brachii muscles. Brachioradialis muscle, there is no fun in telling. radialis, and name indicates. Definitely these muscles will attach with the base of the styloid process of the radius. Then bicep tendon of the bicep muscle will attach with the radial tuberosity. You can see this is the radial tuberosity where the tendon of the bicep muscle will attach. Then we have talked about the abduction is more than adduction, because you can see abduction is more, adduction is less, because there is extension of the distal part of the styloid process of the radius as compared to ulna. That is why there we have more abduction but less adduction. Then we have talked about if there is fracture of the shaft of the radius, what will happen? The upper part of, if the shaft of the radius is fractured, upper part of the radius will be supinated and lower part of the radius will be pronated. Then there are two fractures. Colles fracture is the fracture at the distal end of the radius. If the fractured distal piece of fractured radial bone will go backward and upward, that is called Colles fracture. And if that small piece of distal fractured radius bone will go anteriorly, that is called Smith's fracture. We have talked Virat Kohli and Steve Smith. Colles fracture, it goes on the back foot, backward and upward. And Smith's fracture play like a front foot place, like if the displaced part come at the interior side of the wrist. Then at the end we have talked about ulna. This is the lateral bone of the forearm. It have two processes and two notches. Two processes are the olecranon process and coronoid process. Two notches are the trochlear notch, another is radial notch. You can see over here. Suppose this is an ulnar bone. This is what our if you can see me this. Okay, suppose this is the ulna. This is what which process? Olecranon process. And this is what process? Coronoid process. We have notch. This is trochlear notch, and here we have another notch called radial notch, which make a joint with the superior radioulnar joint. So that was about processes and notches. Then there is a supinator fossa present at the lateral aspect of the ulna that will make provide origin for the supinator muscles. Two supinators muscles, supinator and bicep. These are the two supinator muscles. Then we have talked about mid-lungs deformity, in which there is a dorsal subluxation of the lower end of the ulna. Dorsal subluxation means posterior displacement of the lower end of the ulna due to abnormal or retarded growth of the dorsal lower end of the radius. Simply. So what is mid-lung? This is the dorsal displacement of the lower end of the ulna bone. And then we will talk about, okay, that was about ulna. Then we have talked about some carpal bones. For carpal bones, we have Monica. She looks too pretty. Try to get a scaphoid, lunate, triquetral, pisiform, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. These upper line, that is proximal. She looks too pretty is proximal, but try to catch her is distal, not in your future. It's very distant from your future right now. You can't try. You can't catch her right now. Just proximal row and distal row. From proximal row, it comes from the lateral to medial side. Distal row same from the lateral to medial side. We talked about scaphoid. This is the boat-like bone. This is the most common fracture carpal bone, and the tubercle of the scaphoid bone present at the base of this anatomical snuff box. As it is the most common fracture carpal bones, if that fractures, then pain will happen at the anatomical snuff box. You will feel pain over here, and as it's an anatomical snuff box, we know there is a radial artery also passing through here. And about carpal bone, if there is a fracture, then proximal end of this fractured carpal bone will go under a process called avascular necrosis. So then second carpal bone is lunate, that is half moon shaped, and this is most commonly dislocated carpal bone. If dislocation of the carpal bone, that is lunate, happens anteriorly, that will compress a nerve called median nerve, and due to compression of the median nerve, there is a syndrome called carpal tunnel syndrome. In what happens in carpal tunnel syndrome, compression of the median nerve that lead to the tingling, numbness and weakness of the area related with the median nerve. Okay, we do like this. These things are being innervated by the median nerve. As we know, there is M formation, and some brilliant student told me M for median, M like this. This is median nerve area, and this is U for ulna. This is ulnar nerve area. If the carpal tunnel syndrome happens, what will happen? There is a numbness and tingling sensation and weakness only this part. So, and there are two signs. One is tenile sign and the phalanx maneuver. What happens in tenile sign? We just compress our wrist joint, and if the median nerve is already compressed, and by tapping or striking at the wrist joint, what will happen? This area, will go to numbness or tingling or weakness at the end. And then phalanx maneuver will do that extension at the wrist joint and ask the patient to do like that. And if he do like that, and he will say, yes, I am feeling some insects are going on in my these two fingers and thumb. It means this phalanx maneuver is also positive. These two, phalanx maneuver and tingle sign, that are hallmark for carpal tunnel syndrome. Then third one, tricuteral. This is just a pyramidal in shape, a prism shaped bone. Then pisiform. This is a sesamide bone, and this is the P shaped bone, and this is the bone that is last ossified carpal bone, that is that ossifies at the 12 years of age. Sesamide bone present at the tendon of the flexor carpi, a larynx muscle. Then comes the distal row. First of all, trapezium is a quadrilateral shape of bone and makes a joint with the first metacarpal of the thumb. Then we have talked about trapezoid, that is the largest carpal bone and first carpal bone to ossify, that is trapezoid, that is what, shoe shaped bone. Then third one is capitate, that is the largest carpal bone. It makes joined with the third metacarpal bone. It is the line of action with the adduction and abduction, and this is the bone first ossified. So pisiform is the bone last ossified at 12 years of age, but capitate, in spite of its largest size, it ossifies. First of all, it ossifies 2 months of age. Then lastly, we have hamate, hook-shaped bone, attaches by the deep branches of the ulnar nerve, plus attachment are with the flexor digitorum muscles, flexor digiti minimi muscles. Then at the end, we have to have some metacarpal. First metacarpal is very strong and very short, or shortest and strongest metacarpal is first metacarpal. And if this fracture at the base of the first metacarpal, that is called Bennett's fracture, the person is not able to make a fist or this movement, appearance polysis. It is also not possible. Then third metacarpal bone, that is the longest metacarpal bone. It make a joint with the, it is the line of action for the adduction and abduction. And then there is a fracture at the fourth and fifth metacarpal bones, that is called Boxer's fracture. You can do like this. Boxer make a fist and used to hit like that. So while doing that, while boxing, there are possibilities that if the fracture of the fourth and fifth metacarpal bone can fracture, is called Boxer's fracture. Then at the end, last but not the least, we have mnemonic called CRY2, that is for sequence of ossification at the elbow joint. Like C will ossify first and E will ossify later. C for capitulum, R for radial head of the radial head of which bone? Radial head of the radius bone, radial head. I for internal epicondyle or medial epicondyle. T for trochlea. O for olecranon process. E for external epicondyle or lateral epicondyle. So capitulum ossifies at the age of 1, radial head ossifies at the age of 3, internal or medial epicondyle ossifies at the age of 5, trochlea ossifies at the age of 7, olecranon ossifies at the age of 9, and external or lateral epicondyle ossifies at the age of 11. You can see these are the even numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and 11. These are the years of ossification, and these are the sequence of ossification in the elbow joint. Is there anything I forgot to mention? Is there anything clear? Did I say something very speedy or very fast way?
No, sir.
Everything is understandable. These are my students, you can see. They are very intelligent students. They love to study medicine. So thank you so much for these people who gave attention for today's class, and best of luck for your future. Thank you so much. Take care.